Today's episode is talking about the biggest pitfall in going out on your own. So many recruiters sit at their desk day in, day out, and they think, you know what? Why don't I just do this for myself? I'm sick of my boss, right? Or I want to make more for myself. Let's go out on my own. It crosses every recruiter's mind at some point, and I just want to do an episode on maybe some of the pitfalls of doing it, because it isn't always as glamorous and successful as you might think it will be. And I want to articulate why I believe that to be the case. Now, this is my intel from what I've seen, but I spoke to a lot of rec to recs and what they're seeing in the market at the moment. And essentially, COVID was the gold rush of people going out on their own. You had your ex-recruiter boys hustling up the mentality in the market. The Recruitment United found out community is there to support as well. And you have all these people going out on their own. That's probably 2021, 2022. People were working from home. They could sort of feel that, well, I don't need to be in the office. I may as well do it for myself. And we see this rush of people just leaving and exiting these big agencies. We see that, profits are down for your Hayes and your Randstads of the world, probably because not just margins are slimming, but they're actually losing good talent. So we see this happening, 4 or 5 years ago. Fast forward to today, 2026, and talking to a rec to rec yesterday, he said, mate, the amount of recruiters who went out on their own and then are now coming back to me and saying, I want to go back into agency. And my brain goes, why would they give up all that money? And he said, look, what we're seeing is that people left, they went out on their own, they made a ton of money, and then they just took the foot off the accelerator. I thought, wow, I've got all this money, right? And they go, fuck it, I'm going to go to Bali, or I'm going to go on this trip, or whatever. They just think the money's going to keep coming, because people discount how much effort is involved in making these deals. And when you're locked in, when you first go out, it's like 6 months. You just go hard, right? You're coming off the pace of working big agency, whatever. All of a sudden, your bank accounts fill up with more money you've ever seen in your life. And they go, I'm rich. I don't need to work anymore. People just think, I'm a legend or whatever. And that foot comes off the gas and the money stops coming through. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing that we were talking about this, the second thing that happens is that cash gets really tight all of a sudden, because the tax man comes and goes, hey, you know all that money you made last year? We need tax for that now. And people go, what? How much tax? You want half of it back? I spent it all in Bali, man. And so I think there's this compounding effect, and it takes a couple of years to play out. How do people get into this trap? Look, most people who go out on their own have come from some sort of managerial position, or they've been in an agency where they've run or seen a P&L. And a P&L is a profit and loss statement. Essentially, that's money coming in, money going out, and making sure that you're on track with the budgets that you set. So let's just say you're a billing manager in an agency and you run a P&L. The executive team will say, cool, here are your metrics for the year. We want you to achieve this. This is what it will look like every month. We need to make sure there's certain margin, all that sort of stuff, right? So most people see that at their desk. I run a P&L. I can run a business, my own business, right? Go out on their own. And they go, cool, let's run it like we did with the P&L. The difference is, right, a P&L isn't cash flow and it's not tax. A P&L is literally like a performance metric. It's money coming in, making sure that the heads that you have are covering their costs, and then the money coming out the bottom. Yes, it's somewhat of a cash flow, but it's not, because if you have a red column in any of those months, if you are under budget, there's no repercussions for cash flow. There's no repercussions for you getting paid. There's no repercussions for your team other than you don't get commissions, whatever. You basically send that P&L up to, the management structure, and then they have to deal with the cash flow issue. You actually don't deal with the cash flow problems with a P&L. So this is what I think the first disconnect happens. In terms of a pitfall of going out on your own. If you run a P&L, you get into your own agency and you run it like you have a P&L. The difference is it's not a cash flow. So people miss the cash flow step, and even people I know who run businesses now still don't have cash flows, do my mind. A cash flow is actual money in your bank at any given time looking forward, not looking backwards. So accounting is looking backwards, cash flow is looking forwards. And the cash flow looking forward is actual money in the bank so that you can pay bills, so that you can pay yourself, so that you can pay whatever, right? Very different to a P&L. A P&L says, oh, we didn't meet target this month. You might still have heaps of money in the bank, but you don't see it because you're not privy to that, right? So that's where people run into a bit of trouble when they start. And as I mentioned before, the third layer to where they run into trouble is the tax man, because that can creep up on you. It comes later. If you're not across it, if you haven't got a good accountant, if you don't anticipate that you're going to have all this tax due, then you're going to fall into trouble. You're no longer doing pay-as-you-go tax. It's not just like you get your salary in. It's a very consistent salary, and therefore it's very consistent tax that the company has taken care of for you. You now have to take care of BAS. A BAS is a quarterly tax statement for your business. IAS, it's a monthly tax for basically operating costs, but it's more to do with like if you've got payroll, if you've got staff and their taxes, right? Then if you're in a trust or if you're working for yourself, you have to start paying the tax man quarterly on predicted taxes. You actually got 3 levels of tax there. 4, you have to pay for your superannuation. Okay? Again, yes, all this stuff's being paid for when you work for a business and run a P&L, but it's not yours. And if you haven't got visibility from your cash flow, that shit will keep you up at night. It will keep you up at night. And I got stuck with this when I started. 13 years ago when I opened this agency, I had no idea about all this stuff. So all of those things I just mentioned from the tax man's perspective, the IAS, the monthly statements, the BAS, the quarterly stuff, your pay-as-you-go tax, you've got your quarterly personal taxes, your superannuations, and if you get big enough, you've got payroll tax, which is a state-based tax. On top of that, you'll get these bills. Hey, that's due in 2 weeks' time. $40,000 in 2 weeks' time. Where the fuck do I get that money from? What for? Oh, that's for the tax that on the money you made last quarter. So this is the biggest pitfall. If you do want to go out on your own, I really encourage you to get a great accountant from day one, and I really encourage you to get a forward cash flow done by the accountant and tell them, I need to see, as soon as you know, based on predicted income tax thresholds and everything there, what that tax is going to look like and when it's going to land. So you can see it coming months in advance, right? But anyway, that's my episode. That's the biggest pitfall I see for recruiters going out on their own. And it's no wonder we are seeing in 2026 a whole rush of sole practitioners, recruiters who have gone out to go on their own, come back to agency, take a bit of a haircut because the stress of managing their own finances, they realize is not fucking worth it. They want to, at the end of the day, they're really good recruiters. They're great locked into a market. That's their skill set. That's where they excel. Let's just do more of that and let the business handle all of that admin and background for me. Yes, they might make a little bit of money, but they sleep better at night. There's no stress, and they probably ultimately will make about the same or if not more. So it's not as rosy as it seems. You really have to have a strong understanding of the financials if you do go out on your own. It is as simple as that. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of heart attacks. Like, share, subscribe. Helps us grow. As always, have an amazing day and make all your deals come true.